All right. Well, namaste to each and everybody. It's so wonderful to be alive. There's so much going on, man, and I mean it's going on. And so, welcome to each and every one of you. I hope that your journey of truth is not too troublesome or burdensome. Although sometimes it can be both of those things and still be the correct path to walk. Uh, I found, and so I'll share this, and I hope that somebody will grab a hold of the reality of it. One of the most amazing things about this journey is that oftentimes so much of it is paradoxical. That is to say, and you noticed if you were with me and when we went through the Kabbalion, and most people didn't maybe fully get or remember, and we probably could have all read it 5 or 6 times and still not remember all. But there was this constant concept of everything is, and there are two extremes to it, to everything. Well, we're getting to see that in our society. We get to see that probably in our lives. We get to recognize and see that there are, how do you say it, that there are many, many, many potentials. And it's so vitally important which one of those that collapse into our reality. And yet, oftentimes, we're not aware, first off, that it's that important, and in many cases maybe we don't give it the importance that it really deserves, and I think that's one of the saddest pieces of this journey. So we have all of these paradoxes. It's yes on one hand and yet no on the other. It's up on one side and yet down on the other. And so there's really a lot to try to grab a hold of. It's not as simple, which is part of why they did what they did. They left pieces, vestiges of the ancient, and they made it so that people that were intentionally, and I don't necessarily like to think that we're dumb, but humanity as a whole, worldwide, has been dumbed quite a bit from what we used to be. And that's playing out on many levels. I don't know if you study archaeology at all, but man, they are just ripping the world apart. Everything you knew about history is probably not true. In fact, pretty sure that it's not. And we find that constantly. They keep going back, and now they have uncovered the latest that I've heard is they have uncovered a written language that existed 24,000 years ago. A written language that they had no idea even existed. And yet the symbols, there's 200 plus symbols, and so there's been a lot more going on Mother Earth down here than we have been told, because we live in the 5,000 syndrome, I call it, and nothing about the Old Testament, nothing about it is literal in the way that we were taught it was. Quite surprising and saddening sometimes even. I think I've been sometimes even to the point of depressing, because when you spend your whole life believing in something and then find out that it's not true, it sometimes that's a heavy thing to try to get over. And so I want us to get over this. This is coming. If the ancients are correct, we I certainly have no desire to lower frequency or to cause fear, but because there's, on one level, I don't know, this is another paradox. On one level, if you get it, then you have no need to worry. But if you don't even know what it is that you're supposed to get, that makes it kind of difficult. It makes it kind of daunting. And yet, unfortunately, the only way you can attain that is through mind. And so I want to take off. I said this to you guys, that I really would like for us to pick back up. And so I want to start on Wednesday nights. We're going to read through the Corpus Hermeticum. It's actually 16 individual writings from ancient history. Scholars want you to believe that this wasn't written until way late, but I hate to tell you guys, the more that I learn, the less that I have any value for a college-trained scholar. They're a lot more about opinions than they are about facts, and so I don't say there aren't good ones, and there's certainly some absolutely amazing ones, and so we have to try to discern that. But so the first section in the Corpus Hermeticum, if you on YouTube, Marianne has been so kind and gracious. She has already put, I believe, a link down there for you to be able to access the PDF. Would it benefit you probably to have it if you intend to continue to learn? Then it probably will. But of course, the other side, if you have your phone, then you have a version anyways. So for me, a lot of times it's just a lot easier to read something that's a little bigger than my phone while I'm sitting here. And so the first is called Pomandries. It is the shepherd of men. And so do me a favor as we read through this stuff. I think as I'm growing and changing, because I'm seeing there really is so much wisdom that was hidden in the Bible, specifically the New Testament, but it's all of it. When you stop and think about the reality that Samuel and Abraham and Moses and David and Solomon. Solomon is the most known as being the mystic, and yet look at what he is. He's the outcast one. It's crazy. Okay, these people were not what you have been told they were. David's writings were as mystical as any that there is. And so it's a journey. It's a journey. So he says, it chanced once upon a time, my mind was meditating on the things that are, my thoughts were raised to a great height. Now, right off of the bat, what does that sound like to you? That sounds very similar to me to an ancient that is doing all of the things that are being re-exposed. I hope that's a word, but it is the reality nonetheless. Things that were the ancient past. That's why the Bible tells you that you are to dig the ancient wells, the wells of knowledge, the wells of truth. And so while he was in this state that my thought was raised to a great height, the senses of my body being held back. Just as men who are weighed down with sleep after a fill of food or from fatigue of the body. Methought a being more than vast in size beyond all bounds called out my name and saith, what wouldest thou hear and see? And what hast thou in mind to learn and to know? You'll notice there's the lack of, what is it that you want to manifest so you can have more of all the things? Folks, I hate to tell you, but the reality is this society as we know it, I have lots of new information about what most, I would say assuredly, is coming, and it's been said in many different ways. There is not going to be a mass destruction of humans, but there is going to be a mass destruction of life the way that we know it. It is not going to exist. How long? That's the open part. But according to ancient documents, we have already opened the door to the ending. Humans have. And everything that is the door that opens, we have already done to this earth. And you might be quite surprised to find out that the reason that the tree huggers and the reason, I got a new picture, so here's a piece for you guys. Certainly it's a paradigm shift for me. Global warming is ignorant people being used by source to warn the world. And so methought, a being more than vast, and size beyond all bounds, called out my name and saith, what wouldest that thou hear and see? And what hast thou in mind to learn and know? Now, I would like not to be overly critical, but I would like for you to understand this encounter that was had in a time of meditation. If you would just simply look at what it is that methought, ask, is concerned, focuses his mind on. And it is all. So let's ask yourself this question. If methought said to you, you were laying down to go to sleep and you were in theta, and right before you fell asleep, methought came to you and said, please tell me what it is that is in your mind that you would like to know and see. How would you answer that question? Many would have nothing to answer that question with because they neither think nor do they have anything in their mind. And so, and I do say, who art thou? It's just like the conversation I had about the archons and the spirit guides and all of this stuff that spirituality has been lavishing on the world with no knowledge whatsoever of the reality of what this world even is or who it is that they're talking to. So we see here the question that should be asked. And actually this question, as I was reading, I was amazed at how much truth, little clips of truth that exist in the Bible, but we don't know it because we don't know what truth is. So we never knew that that was truth that the pastor just read, or if you read your Bible, that you just read over with zero knowledge of what was even being asked. And I do say, who art thou? If you would go back and if you would look at John tells you how to deal and how to recognize and how to find out and how to know who it is that's talking to you from the other side. It's actually part of their protocol that you would never break that protocol had you been a follower of Yeshua. And he saith, I am man, shepherd, pomandries, mind of all masterhood. Remember, in the Kabbalion, you are told in the first paragraph that everything is mind, that God's source is mind, and everything else that exists is mind. And mind of all masterhood. Think about that concept. Mind of all. So where does the masterhood of all come from? It comes from the mind. I know what thou desirest, and I am with thee everywhere. So let me get this picture right. We have somebody who has been silent enough to go inside of themselves, and they go inside and they have an encounter with a spirit who is a master of the mind. I believe that you probably could say this in the term that we use in modern day world instead of me thought. Did that trigger what was going on? Who was speaking to who? This was an encounter with the higher self of a person. This is what we are to crave and to desire in quiet, silent meditation time, that you begin to enter in to relationship with the true you, me, thought. And I reply, I long to learn things that are, and comprehend their nature, and know God. This is, I said, what I desire to hear. And higher self answered back to me, hold in thy mind all that thou wouldest know. Stop and ponder that right there. I'm going to take and give a little twist to this to hopefully help you understand how critical this is. The truth of the matter is you do already hold what is in your mind as being what's important to you. The question isn't if you're doing that. It's like manifestation. There's people selling words out there by tricking people's minds. Don't let them lie to you. You are a master manifester already. The question isn't, can I manifest? The question is, how do I learn to manifest the things that are beneficial to me? Not how to manifest. Hold in thy mind all that thou wouldest know. I've said to you, I've given you many millions of keywords to hold on to. What you focus, I said this a week ago, what you focus on is what you are and will and have become. All you have to do is listen to what comes out of someone to find out what they are. It's evident. Nobody can hide it from you once you know how humans function. Because as soon as someone opens their mouth, you're going to see who they are for real. Hold in thy mind all that thou wouldest know. Wow. Simple little few words, but you want to talk about a power-packed pill, and I will teach these. So you are learning what is important to you. That's why nobody knows about this, because it's not important to them. Because if it were important, Source would open that core knowledge, wisdom, intellect, intelligence that exists inside of you. But until that happens, you're thinking about material things, most probably, which have no value, by the way. Even with these words, his aspect changed. Did I talk about paradoxes already? Even with these words, his aspect changed, and straightway in the twinkling of an eye, where have you heard that from? All things were open to me. Now, I'd like for you to hold on to something here, because there may be people come along who are just coming out of Christianity. I got a little piece of revelation, and I really believe that there's enough people out there that are supposedly know everything. I don't know everything. In fact, on some days, I don't know anything. I'm only a person who is just exactly like this person that is hungry to know what is. And I think in my mind constantly about what is. How do I manifest the things that I want? How do I learn to love like God loves? How do I learn to protect myself against the people in this world that want to hurt me? All of those things constantly go through my mind. That's what my mind is focused on. And even with these words, his aspect changed, and straightway in the twinkling of an eye, all things were open to me. And here's the piece I wanted to add to that, which isn't really adding, but it is a little clarity, hopefully, for you. Did you know that that's how difficult it is? Do you know that you could revolutionize your life before the day is over with simply by listening to what's been read already? Pretty crazy, friends. We've been made to believe that to be what we are is difficult, and it's not. What's difficult is get rid of what we're not. And that is where 99% of the masses are going to fail continually. Have you ever asked yourself, is that really me? I love now in my mind right then, the Spirit just brought a talking head song that everybody used to laugh about. And he says, this is not my beautiful wife and this is not my beautiful car. He was coming to consciousness that reality was not real. And it's the most laughed at song that ever existed on MTV. It was the most profound truth, and yet everybody mindlessly sat with no knowledge of what he was talking about. Happened a lot, folks. And so, in the twinkling of an eye, this was open to me. How amazing would it be for you, friends, if all you simply had to do was to quit resisting and become present. And the things, even if you desire them, without knowledge, you will never attain them. There's really lots of false teachings out there that are really going to are destroying spirit people constantly. I see more and talk to more confused spirit people than I do confused Christians. Because they're told all of these great things. If I just think, if I just think harder and if I just believe it more, then all of these things will manifest. And if you know anything about the human nature, you know that you don't make yourself believe something in that manner. Actually, belief is an outworking. It requires nothing of you other than for you to notice it. So that's why I said that's how that ties to the paradox of affirmations. Somebody questioned me when I said that about affirmations are nothing unless they come from your heart, and then they're the most powerful tool that you have. And they said, well, what do you mean affirmations don't mean anything? Affirmations don't mean anything unless you believe them. It's an internal thing. That's why Yeshua says that faith without, James said faith without works is dead being alone. Why? Because you have to have something that proves that you believe it in the first place. That's why Yeshua said, if you believe that you have something, I tell you the truth, you have it. That's why Paul says that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence that exists before the thing appears. All saying exactly the same mystic words. You could call it today manifestation. But what it really is reality. And you are doing that already, but you may not be doing it in the direction or for the purpose that it was intended to be used for. There's where one of the problems is. We have lots of manifestation for greed people. And the problem is that a true spirit being doesn't give a crap about money. Because their source is exactly that, their source. It's really crazy how all this stuff works together. It's really not as difficult as everybody would think it is. Or as it's maybe being made for you. And so, in the twinkling of an eye, this opened to me, and I see a vision limitless. Everything in this vision turned to light. Notice that. When you can bring yourself into this place, which is where we should all be craving to go, dear friends, when you do that, there's nothing for you to do except be you. That's the most horrible part of this. I bet you won't find many manifestation teachers that'll be honest enough with you to tell you that sometimes you're not manifestation and it's not because you're not doing everything right. Sometimes that is what's manifesting is what you need. I do believe that we are constantly tested. Are you going to continue to believe irrespective of what the circumstances around you look like? That's the greatest taste of faith that there is. That's why Paul says, I don't need to see the thing to know that I've got it. And if you don't have that inside, friend, that's not mental. That is heart. So, and I see a vision limitless, all things turned into light. Now look at what comes out of this space and place that he's in. Sweet and joyous light. I'll give you another little piece that might help some of you, because somebody asked me a question or made a statement. They said, well, I still don't understand what frequency is. And there are many texts that are written, ancient and more recent, that speak about what is coming, and it's coming very soon, friends. The kind of shift is coming out of massive chaotic chaos, and its only protection is your frequency. It's done like that by the universe for a purpose. You guys are still thinking that because you were told that God loves everything, and God does love everything in a manner, but we need to redefine what love is. And so, look at this. All things did what? All things did what? They turned into joyous light. The highest frequency, you want to know what it is? You want to know how to be careful? You want to know how to more free yourself from the archons, which are just writing you. I used to have a word that I use, and I probably shouldn't say it now, but with a monkey in a basketball. Do you know that that's going on every day, or have you even begun to recognize it yet? I had a situation yesterday, and there was an urging in me, and I didn't like it. It wasn't me, and I recognized. I said, I have this urging. I'm aware of it. I have this urging, but that's not me. And immediately, in that second that I said that, I knew exactly what it was. And so, just because you recognize it doesn't mean it won't come back again. But hopefully, now that you've recognized it, you can then continue to combat it, and it will no longer be an issue. It will disperse, and it will go away. So here we go. And so this thing all became joyous light. The highest frequency that exists in humanity, friends, is joy. When Paul says that in all things rejoice, Paul really meant exactly what he said. When Paul was beaten and thrown into prison, Paul rejoiced because he knew that his human body wasn't what it was about. You can't kill my spirit. And for some of you who've lived hellacious lives and been abused and traumatized, and all of us have in our own ways, folks, this is one of the greatest hands that there is. I got a word from source yesterday, and the word was for me, but I think there's other people that were. This is the statement that was made to me. He said, your heart is bleeding inside. And he said, you must go back to the beginning. Wow. In meditation, I sat there and I recognized that what had been said to me was absolutely true. I am bleeding inside. I'm still bleeding from the trauma of what my family did to me. I'm still bleeding from the trauma of what people have done to me. And the only way I can fix that is to go back to the beginning and do all the things that I now know to do that I didn't know to do at that time. Mostly release it. But just so that you know, those people who Dolores Cannon talks about that will be preserved in the chaos. Now, just so you know, there are sects of people that have studied Dolores Cannon and they are moving to the center of the United States and buying large pieces of land and starting communities right now for what is coming. To them, it is real, but it's real at a material level. It's not real at the spirit level. And had they listened further to what Dolores brought forth, they would have found out that she's trying to tell them the only thing that will preserve you is your frequency. Please put that in your mind and lock it and look at it daily. The only thing with what is coming in the next few years that is going to preserve you is your frequency. That's an absolute fact. Then the question and what should be entertaining your time should be, how do I keep my frequency where it needs to be? When you do, things become sweet. Things happen, doesn't mean you quit being human, doesn't mean you don't fight depression, doesn't mean you don't fight anger, doesn't mean you don't fight. In fact, I'm so thankful Source has been bringing some people, and the worst thing that we can do is impose all of this nonsense stuff that has been imposed on people about our emotions. The problem is not having an emotion. The problem is how you deal with the emotion. Having the emotion is human. And so, everything turned to sweet, joyous light, and I became transported as I gazed. I so long for one of these things. I will lay back and I will say, I would like to have an Edgar Casey visitation. I want to learn how to go into a trance and move into the other realms. But in a little while, darkness came settling down on part of it, awesome and gloomy. Now, here's somebody who has made it to that point, folks. And so if you've not made it to that point and you have those times when the gloomy comes, give yourself a break. People much ascended over you deal with this just like you do. And awesome and gloomy, coiling insinuous folds, so that methought is likened to a snake. So once again, grab it. What's being said? Once again, in your mind, your higher consciousness has brought you to a place. Goes on all the time. You just don't know it. And then, of course, the snake also is the symbol of something which, if you haven't begun this in your journey or begun to look at it, then it is something that you should maybe consider putting in your focus, putting in your thought process, putting in your mind, putting in your thinking on. And that would be the understanding of Kundalini and the power that humans have always possessed that has been robbed from us simply because they have cut off the ability for us to access the divine power that already functions in us. Whether you know it or not, friends, when people talk about a calcified pineal gland, that's not an accident. Did you know that every one of the things we went through a couple of years of taking iodine to destroy the chlorine and all of this negative stuff, all of those same things and all of these additives, fluorides, chlorine, bromides, all of those things also work towards the calcification of your pineal gland, which stops you being able to access the spirit realm, and it was done on purpose. This is not a game in the manner that we know how to play games. The game is that your higher divine intelligence wins because it is higher divine intelligence, and everyone else loses. Because theirs isn't. Not because of you. Not because you said those words, oh, you didn't prophesy it. because you cared enough to focus your mind on what's important and not on what's not important. And if you think that I'm wrong, just wait until 6 months from now when you don't know what reality even is. Many are already living in that sphere. The matrix zone is your cell phone. You are in the zone of the matrix when you live in your mind in your phone. It was built for it and totally to preoccupy your mind from reality, the true reality. It is a witch, and it has a spell on you, and you have no knowledge, conscious, or desire to know the reality. That's why AI is coming to save you. I hear questions now from spiritual people who are teaching because they're talking to their spirit guides. And now their spirit guides are leading them that they should start letting AI be their new spirit guide. If you don't believe it, it's on the television. You can hear the words I just said coming out of people who are making a living talking to the spirits for people. It may sound absurd to you, but all of the things that happen in reality are absurd to you. That's the problem. It agrees with what you view it as. If you believe it's absurd, guess what? It'll be absurd because that's what you believe. If you think it's false, it's okay. It's false. Why? Because that's what you believe. That's how the universe works, friends. And so that me thought is like unto a snake is talking about the Kundalini. And the darkness changed into some sort of moist nature, tossed about beyond all power of words, belching out smoke as from a fire and groaning forth a wailing sound that beggars all description. And after that, an outcry inarticulate came forth from it, as though it were a voice of fire. Thereon, out of the light, a holy word, logos, descended on that nature, and upwards to the height. From the moist nature leaped forth pure fire. Light was it, swift and active too. The air too, being light, followed after the fire from out of the earth, and water rising up to the fire, so that it seemed to hang therefrom. But earth and water stayed so mingled with each other that earth from water no one could discern. Were they moved to hear by reason of the spirit word logos pervading them? Then saith to me, man, shepherd, didst understand this vision and what it means? Nay, that I shall know, said I. Friends, you got to lighten up on yourself. You know, the hardest paradox to grab a hold of is that you have to let go and hold on. All of this truth of the universe is all paradox. It's never unbalanced. It's always balanced. It is not one or the other. It's always both. As above, so below. It's not one, it's both. And until you begin to view yourself and the world in that manner, you will always struggle with reality. It's not good or bad. I had a conversation with somebody recently. I said, look, it's not good or bad. You pay your money and take your chances. You ought to give some really solid thinking to every thought decision that you make, because whatever you do is okay, but understand that being okay doesn't mean it's okay. It simply means that you haven't somehow committed a sin, but don't think for a second you ain't going to pay a hell of a price for your decisions. That's the problem. People walk around mindlessly thinking, oh, look, now I know that I'm God and it doesn't matter what I do anymore. I heard the guy on TV say that. No, it doesn't. You're absolutely right. You're free to do whatever the hell you want to do. But just remember that there is a massive price to pay for everything you do. Knock yourself out. I hope I'm not too deep for some of you guys, but this is amazing. Man, we are supposed to be ruling things right now, and it's a good question. I have to tell you, there is some worry and concern in the spirit realm, and many prophecies say that we are going to come to a time where either mankind is going to be destroyed or mankind is going to enlighten, and depending on what humans do in the next 3 or 4 years is going to determine that. You might not see that it's that close, but it is. And it wasn't anything that was pre-planned. The reality is potential. Understand, everything is potential. Nothing is fixed. No prophecy has ever been fixed. Prophecy is based on what the people do. If you do this, this is what's going to happen to you. And of course, we don't know that, so we keep doing that, and it keeps happening to us. And so he says, no, I don't know. And folks, one of the greatest revelations you'll ever have is that it's okay for you not to know. That's not the end of it, though. If for you it's okay because it's just like, well, I don't know, so I don't think about it. It's wonderful and kind for you to say that, but it's destructive for you. You will destroy yourself with mindlessness. So, that lady said, am I? Did you hear this? Are you grabbing the gravity of what these words are saying to you? I'm going to say it very close to you. Yeshua said it, and I've shared this more than any preacher probably that you've ever met. Do you not know that you are Elohim? Do you not know that? Please listen. That light, the divine source, all God light, is me thought. You'd never believe it. He said, am I thy God? Mind, prior to moist nature which appeared from darkness, the light word logos that appeared from mind is the Son of God. Do you see now the whole joke about Jesus and Christness? Yeshua was a spirit inhabiting a physical body just as you are. He was you and you are him. What then, say I? Maybe you've asked that question. Know that what sees in thee and hears is the Lord's word, or logos. But mind is Father. When Yeshua said, our Father who art in heaven, hallowed is thy name, do you now have any concept of what he actually was telling the world that Christianity has deceived you about? Thy Father who art in heaven, hallowed is thy name. That's what that's all about. You have no consciousness of it, nor would you ever if somebody did not expose it to you. There is nothing Yeshua said that isn't mystical or it's been changed. There's only two options. But mind is Father, God. Not separate. Maybe some of you have felt separated. Maybe you felt like somehow you need to suffer, or somehow you need to go through massive repentance, and maybe you need to crawl on your knees and beat yourself with a whip, or maybe you felt like that you needed to fast to please, or maybe you felt like that you needed to eat fish on Friday, or maybe you felt like, 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 or maybe you really didn't feel like at all, but the archon sitting in your God space at the back of your head made you feel that way, and you bought it hook, line, and sinker because you had no knowledge of what was happening to you, and you've lived your whole life in that context. We are not separate. Not a bit. Neither have you ever been. If you feel alone because your ego's still ruling you. Pure and simple. They, the one from the other. When you hear someone, you now get to hear an ancient text that is teaching in antiquity exactly what you're hearing many leaders of our day that are speaking, telling you that we are all one. I just read it to you. That's why when you screw me over, you screwed yourself over, idiot. You really don't understand what it means to love your neighbor like you love yourself. What you do when you are not doing that is you are invoking destruction on yourself of your own will. You want it because you refuse to love yourself. Wow, them's harsh words, man. We ought to smoke a joint and have a beer about that. But I have to tell you, it's the truth. All of those thoughts that we carry in our minds, all of those things, all of those loops that you get on where you get so offended and so pissed off and your ego runs rampant, turns you into a cow with a ring in your nose. And you have no consciousness that you're doing all of that, not to the person, you're doing that to yourself. Because you are that person. Might be a bit much for you, but I assure you in time, if you're a seeker, you'll know that what I said is true. And so, know that what sees in thee and hears is the Lord's words, logos. But mind is Father, God. God is mind. Higher self, consciousness, full and complete consciousness is 50% of the human that is sitting in any place. Not separate are we from one from another. Not separate. You may have a different set of clothes on. That is to say, you may have a big butt, or you may have a little butt, or you may be tall, or you may be short, but you're no different. You just have a different house than I do. When you begin to revolutionize that inside of yourself and begin to let go, and it will be a horrible night of horrors for you. Those who have told me I sat in silence for a month and I've started seeing all the things I did to others is a revelation of exactly what you would see in the Akashic record. When you look inside, you begin to see things that you have been running from your whole life. It's amazing, it's wonderful, it's scary, but I promise you it's the only way. It's really crazy and wonderful how beautiful that the changing that is going on and the contact and the connection with higher self that's starting to manifest. For some, it's not for everybody. It won't for everybody, because I just shared with you earlier. What you think on, friends, is what you think about. What you focus your mind on. If you get up and all you can think about is all the fun things you're going to do, or all the money you're going to make, or all the traveling you're going to do, or all the, that is who you are. And nothing spiritual is going to get through to you. You must desire it. That's why people have to have these fake spiritual shows of, I did it. It's like, shit, if all we want to do is see colors, let's just go get some MDM, or let's go get some LSD. You can see all the colors you want to. But that isn't reality. That's another illusion. And if they can sell that to you and get you to buy it, the archons love it. Because you keep wandering around looking for the next spiritual, supposedly significant nothing, which it's nothing, and you keep looking for it. What are you doing? You're focusing on anything except what is real. And that's where most people live. Always looking for the next thing that's going to be an easy way for them to be something. It really is sad how powerful the ego is, friends. But I'm telling you right now, the mass majority of people are egomaniacs. They are maniacal on their ego. That's why, how do you see, if you go study ancient initiates, how did they live? They lived quiet, they walked alone, they talked almost nothing at all, they did not like noise, they did not want to be around noisy people. They could not stand noise, because it breaks my silence and affects my frequency. And my frequency is sacred, and that's what I focus on, not what you want. And so people continue to make their noise and chatter with no consciousness that they'll never go anywhere. Very sad, actually. So, from mind is Son of God. What then, say I? Know that what sees in thee and hears is the Lord's words, his logos. But mind is Father, God, not separate. We are they, the one from the other. Just in their union, rather, is it life consist. Thanks be to thee, I said. So understand the light, he answered, and make friends. I've been telling some of you lately that you must invoke, you must begin a relationship with your higher self before your higher self is not going to come and take over. You must give up. And you can't give up and be loud, because you still won't be able to hear. But the loudness is where the giving up ceases. And loud doesn't always mean volume. You might also redefine that concept. I know lots of people that don't say anything and their spirit is very loud, very bawdy. I feel it and I get a negative thing that cringes down my spine. simply by being in their presence, and they have no knowledge of it. So, understand the light, he answered, and make friends with it. What a novel idea. Maybe you haven't ever had that. Maybe you're still with me where I was back there in Christianity, and I did have a knowing that I could be and was friends with God. But there was still plenty of that negative feedback loop that gets put into us about we should be scared of God because, if you mess up too much, then God's going to kill you. And when it comes to Judgment Day, man, he's going to throw your ass in hell. You know it for sure. Almost every person that was brought up in Christianity has that loop running in the back of their mind. Every one of us. And you still think, here's the worst part. If you are spiritually prideful, you believe you're the one that doesn't. Did you know that never exists anywhere in truth? What exists in truth is I recognize it. I see that it is there. That's how you know someone is not significant in the spirit realm. Because they constantly deny it to protect what? Their ego. That's all it is a protection. I still want to be somebody. I still want everybody to look at me. I still want all the attention. I'm still the thing. My words must mean more than everybody else's do. My presence must be more precious than everybody else's is. If you don't know, that's what ego does to you. You ought to look at yourself and find out if you're functioning in that realm. So, thanks be to thee, I said. I don't know about you, I say that constantly. I'm very thankful for those things that just collapse me sometimes. It's quite amazing how much good comes out of them. And so, understand the light, he answered, and make friends with it. And I'd love to sow that word for you tonight, because we're close to being here to where we're going to stop. But please let me sow that word. If all of this hasn't been so foreign to the way that you've lived your life, well, then you're a really massively blessed person. But to me, all of this stuff was very foreign when I first saw it. And then as I began to see it, and then pieces of it begin to be brought to life. Why? Because it was brought to life for a purpose. I don't know what your purpose for life is, for even existing is. It's not my job to know, and I don't waste my time worrying about what your place is. It's enough for me to focus on my place. What then, I say? Know that what sees in thee and hears in thee is the Lord's word. What sees, this is bigger than maybe what you're thinking about. What sees and hears in you is the words that are in you. This isn't the words that you speak. It's the logos. And it's what sees and it's what hears. When Yeshua says those that see, when Yeshua says those that hear, he's talking about the logos inside of you, not your eyes and ears, folks. Ain't got nothing to do with your physical. Nothing he says is, for the most part, has anything to do with the physical. It's all in you. How you hear, how you think, how you act, it all comes from inside of you. You are on the outside what you are on the inside. If you're a spaz on the inside, you're a spaz on the outside. If you're a rear end on the inside, you're a rear end on the outside. It doesn't make any difference. Our job is to recognize what we are, no matter what it is. Because then and only then can we begin to change things. And so understand the light, he answered, and make friends with it. So then we have a 2-count job that goes with these really simple little things. One is to understand the light. And at a deep level, that may take you a while to recognize that the light is God. The light that's in you is God. God in you, the hope of glory. And speaking thus, he gazed for a long into my eyes, so that I trembled at the look of him. Did you hear it? He's talking with me thought, and now me thought is doing what? You remember a few years ago, even before we left Christianity, I told you I almost double dog dared you to go stand in front of your mirror and look at yourself excruciatingly and do not run from yourself in the mirror. And I bet there wasn't one person probably that did it. And yet here we have self looking at him. He's telling you what I told you was correct. Speaking thus, who is thus? Me thought. My higher self. So that I trembled at the look of him. But when he raised his head, I see in the mind the light. But now in powers no man could number, and cosmos grown beyond all bounds. What a beautiful, expansive picture. In other words, the world opened up to him. The world on every level opened up to him. It opened up to him on the inside. He began to see that he was love and that he was light. You can sing that song. There's mantra songs on there that people sing. Remember, those are not what matter. We really have a massive concept. We think that this thing, music, is God. It's just a simple manifestation humans have created to appease their self. It has nothing to do with God. The song that you must sing comes from inside of you and is silent. And has grown beyond all bounds. Grown beyond all bounds. All of a sudden, the world has begun to shift, and nothing may look any different for you, but all of a sudden, everything is amazing, and everything is wonderful, and everything is love, and everything is kind. Does it mean that people don't do things? Of course it doesn't mean that. But it also, those things should not be able to change what you are. And so, of course, as I've said often, you have to learn how to navigate the landscape, friends. You don't put on a set of sandals and a pair of khaki shorts to go climbing mountains. And you don't go from Christianity and humanity and greediness and self-centered materialism and go into the spirit realm dressed exactly like you were. And if you're so naive that you believe that, I feel sorry for you. If that didn't come to your mind immediately, I feel sorrowful for you. If you think that you can continue to be like you've always been and somehow attain these great heights, good luck with that one. You'll be the only human that's ever existed in 300,000 million, billion, gazillion years that's ever accomplished it. I don't think it's going to happen. But when he raised his head, I see in the mind the light. But now in powers, no man can number. So the more that gets wiped away, as I said, I shared this to you, the more that you power spray yourself and your ego, the more room you make for the humble, true light being that you are to come out. And that's what he's saying here. After this, there was a wiping of his glasses, if you would. And all of a sudden, when he looks back, he goes, wow. If it was brilliant before, and it was, but if it was brilliant before, look how brilliant it is now. Many would call that conscious revelation, which is a term that I spoke, but it didn't come from me. It was given to me before I even began a journey for consciousness, although I've always been on one. I just didn't know it. And so, and the cosmos had grown beyond all bounds, and that the fire was compassed round about by a most mighty power. We don't really understand, folks. Do you have any clue about how much we scare the spirit realm? And you probably don't. And I don't even say that I do. I think that I have a beginning of an inkling, but at best, I would say that's probably all. We don't have a clue about why they hated Yeshua like he did, but once you begin to know what's going on, it wasn't just him. It was the archonic force that rules this world that hated him, not the Jews. They just happened to be the archon's slaves, which is any different than the Inquisition and the killing of millions of people by archonic slaves. And so, and now subdued, had come unto a stand. And when I saw these things, I understood by reason. There it is again, Mariana. Wasn't I just talking about that? Guys, this ain't been 30 minutes ago that I was talking about. Source keeps bringing this word reason into my realm. And here it is again on the last note. And when I saw these things, I understood. How did I understand? I understood by reason. Many people in our society are unreasonable. They do not have the capacity to reason. They continue on mindlessly with no ability to stop and say, whoa, if I do that, this is what that's going to mean to me. How do I understand? I understand by reason. How do you understand? You have to answer that for yourself. I don't know how you understand. And so I understood by reason of man, shepherd's words, the Logos. So those that do have eyes to see will see, and those who have ears to hear will hear. I know it's been a lot, and I know it's been intense. And I will try to do much better about learning how to curve, and so I get smoother about bringing it forth. But friends, I got to tell you right now, if you got any of this, you're blessed whether you know it or don't. And for those that really listened and it hit inside of you, you're doubly blessed. The thing is changing. I know that many of you may not really understand this, but I think that you're going to be quite surprised in the next 4 years. 2030 keeps coming up a lot, just like reason has lately. And I hear this from spiritual people, and I hear this from people over here, the ancients, often. The Sumerians, 5,000 years ago, wrote about 2030. It's actually a part of the time of the seventh people that's coming to an end. And humanity will either make a decision for right, or all of those that are low frequency will be something, I don't know what happens to them. But it's exactly the same thing, 5,000 years to Dolores Cannon in the 1960s. And they shared the same words with the world. And so I know that maybe some of this for some isn't all that real. Maybe some of them, it's not important. And that's fine if that's who you are. I'm not going to concern because I won't remember you anyway. It won't make any difference to me. But will it make a difference for you? I can't even answer that question. So I hope that you will grab a hold and take care of. As we go along, we're going to see great and mighty things that you know not of. The Bible promises that God would show us great and mighty things that we know not of. You haven't probably known any of this, and God has shown you now great and mighty things that you know not of. That you're not separate, never have been, never can be. You know, I used to say that so funny, all the cliche Christian things like eye hasn't seen and ear hasn't heard and neither has entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared. But is it prepared for everybody? No, it's only for those who love him. How do you know that you love him? You love him when he is your adoration, when he is your focal point, when everything about him is all that's important to you. There you go. And the rest you have no need to worry about. They'll take care of themselves. So peace to each and every one of you. Good luck with this week. I hope that you'll take that, but please do take that to thought, because they are, whether you recognize it or not, unless you're just out of the zone at all. You'll have some time that there'll be something, and you'll have a thought, and you'll recognize it. I hope that when you recognize it, you recognize that it really wasn't from you, because when you encounter that, when you begin to encounter that, you'll begin to recognize that all of a sudden you are starting in a new way to awaken. And so peace and shalom to each and every one of you. Namaste.